Adolf Hitler. The name alone evokes a visceral reaction, a chilling reminder of humanity's capacity for darkness. His reign was short, spanning just 12 years, yet its impact on the 20th century remains unparalleled. Born in a small Austrian town, Hitler transformed from an aspiring artist into a tyrannical dictator. He plunged the world into a devastating war, leaving millions dead and countless lives shattered. This is the story of his ascent, his reign of terror, and his ultimate downfall. Adolf Hitler was born in 1889 in Braunau am Inn, Austria. This small town, nestled on the border between Austria and Germany, was a quiet and unassuming place, far removed from the tumultuous events that would later define his life. The town's serene environment, with its cobblestone streets and quaint houses, belied the storm that was brewing in the young boy's mind. His childhood was marked by a strict father and an affectionate mother. Alois Hitler, his father, was a stern and authoritarian figure, a customs official who demanded discipline and obedience. In contrast, his mother, Clara, was gentle and nurturing, providing a stark contrast to his father's harshness. This dichotomy in parental influence created a complex emotional landscape for young Adolf, who often found himself torn between fear and affection. He harbored dreams of becoming an artist, but his aspirations were dashed when he was rejected twice by the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts. These rejections were a significant blow to his self-esteem and ambitions. The rejection letters, which cited a lack of talent, were a bitter pill to swallow for the young man who had poured his heart into his art. This period of his life was characterized by a deep sense of failure and frustration. This period of rejection and hardship proved pivotal, sowing the seeds of resentment and fueling his growing nationalism. As he wandered the streets of Vienna, he was confronted with the stark realities of urban life. The city's grandeur was marred by poverty, homelessness, and social inequality. These experiences deepened his sense of alienation and bitterness, and he began to seek solace in nationalist ideologies. His time in Vienna exposed him to the city's underbelly, where anti-Semitism and nationalist sentiment festered. The city's vibrant cultural scene was overshadowed by a growing tide of xenophobia and racial hatred. Anti-Semitic graffiti and propaganda were commonplace, and nationalist rallies often turned violent. These toxic ideologies found a receptive audience in the disillusioned young man, who began to adopt them as his own. These ideologies would later form the bedrock of his twisted worldview. The seeds of hatred and intolerance that were planted during his time in Vienna would grow and flourish, ultimately leading to one of the darkest chapters in human history. His unfulfilled dreams and personal failures became the foundation upon which he built his destructive and malevolent vision for the future. The world would soon witness the catastrophic consequences of a life shaped by rejection, resentment, and a relentless pursuit of power. World War I provided a fertile ground for Hitler's burgeoning extremism. He served in the German army, experiencing the horrors of trench warfare firsthand. Germany's defeat in 1918 left him embittered and fueled his belief in a Jewish conspiracy that had undermined the war effort. He joined the German Workers' Party, a small fringe group that shared his nationalist and anti-Semitic views. His charisma and powerful oratory skills quickly propelled him through the ranks. Section 4. The Nazi Grip, Terror, Expansion and Genocide. The 1920s saw the rapid rise of the Nazi Party, fueled by economic instability and political turmoil. The Treaty of Versailles had left Germany in a state of economic despair, with hyperinflation and mass unemployment plaguing the nation. The Weimar Republic struggled to maintain control, and the German people were desperate for a solution. This created a fertile ground for extremist ideologies to take root. Hitler's beer hall putsch in 1923, a failed attempt to seize power, only served to increase his notoriety. Although the coup was unsuccessful and Hitler was imprisoned, it provided him with a platform to spread his ideas. During his time in prison, he wrote Mein Kampf, outlining his vision for Germany's future and his virulent anti-Semitic beliefs. This manifesto would become the ideological foundation of the Nazi Party. By 1933, the Nazis were the largest party in the Reichstag, and Hitler was appointed Chancellor. The political landscape of Germany had shifted dramatically, with the Nazis capitalizing on the public's discontent. Through a combination of propaganda, intimidation, and political maneuvering, they managed to secure significant support. The appointment of Hitler as Chancellor marked the beginning of a new and terrifying era for Germany. He quickly consolidated his power, dismantling democracy and establishing a totalitarian state. The Reichstag fire in February 1933 provided a pretext for the Nazis to push through the Reichstag fire decree, which suspended civil liberties and allowed for the arrest of political opponents. This was followed by the Enabling Act, which gave Hitler dictatorial powers. The Nazis systematically dismantled democratic institutions, silenced opposition, and established a regime based on fear and repression. His regime was built on terror, propaganda, and the systematic persecution of Jews, political opponents, and other minority groups. The Nazis used propaganda to control public perception and maintain their grip on power. They portrayed Hitler as Germany's savior and demonized those they deemed undesirable. The regime's policies led to the establishment of concentration camps where millions of Jews, along with Romani people, disabled individuals, political dissidents, and others, were imprisoned and murdered. The Holocaust remains one of the darkest chapters in human history, a stark reminder of the consequences of unchecked hatred and totalitarianism. Section 5. The Tide Turns, from Hubris to Defeat. Emboldened by his early successes, Hitler embarked on a campaign of expansion, violating the Treaty of Versailles and annexing Austria in 1938. This bold move was met with little resistance from the international community, emboldening Hitler further. The annexation, known as the Anschluss, was a significant step in Hitler's plan to create a greater German Reich. The enthusiastic reception from many Austrians only fueled his ambitions, making him believe that his vision of a unified Germanic empire was within reach. His invasion of Poland in 1939 triggered the start of World War II. This aggressive act shattered the fragile peace in Europe and led Britain and France to declare war on Germany. The swift and brutal tactics of the Blitzkrieg, or Lightning War, overwhelmed Polish defenses and showcased the might of the German military. The fall of Poland was swift, but it marked the beginning of a global conflict that would engulf the world in unprecedented violence and destruction. Initial German victories gave way to a protracted and costly conflict. The early years of the war saw Germany achieving rapid successes, conquering vast territories in Europe. The Blitzkrieg strategy proved devastatingly effective, leading to the fall of France and the occupation of much of Western Europe. However, these victories came at a high cost, stretching German resources and setting the stage for a prolonged and grueling war. The initial euphoria of victory began to fade as the realities of a drawn-out conflict became apparent. The tide began to turn with the Allied victory in North Africa in 1943, followed by the devastating defeat at Stalingrad. The Battle of El Alamein marked a significant turning point as Allied forces halted the advance of the Axis powers in North Africa. This victory was a morale booster and a strategic win, paving the way for further Allied successes. Meanwhile, on the Eastern Front, the Battle of Stalingrad became one of the deadliest confrontations in history. The Soviet Union's fierce resistance and eventual victory marked the beginning of a relentless pushback against German forces. The defeat at Stalingrad was a catastrophic blow to Hitler's ambitions, signaling a shift in the momentum of the war. As the war dragged on, the true horrors of the Nazi regime, including the systematic murder of 6 million Jews in the Holocaust, were revealed to the world. The liberation of concentration camps by Allied forces uncovered the extent of the atrocities committed by the Nazis. The world was confronted with the grim reality of genocide, as images of emaciated survivors and mass graves emerged. The Holocaust remains one of the darkest chapters in human history, a stark reminder of the consequences of unchecked hatred and totalitarianism. The revelations of these horrors galvanized the Allied resolve to defeat the Nazi regime and bring its leaders to justice. The war's end would not only signify the defeat of a tyrannical regime, but also a commitment to ensuring that such atrocities would never happen again.